This conference will now be recorded.
All right, good morning, everybody. It's just after 10 o'clock. Welcome to our Open Science Subcommittee meeting. We'll go ahead and start this morning with a round of introductions. I'm Megan Schrant, one of the co-chairs of the Open Science Subcommittee. I'm with FWRI's FIM program. Marcus, you want to go next, and then we'll go down the list?
Sure. Hi, I'm Marcus Beck. I'm the other co-chair for the Open Science Subcommittee. You'll be hearing from me in a minute, as always. So also, if y'all could turn on your cameras, see your pretty faces, that'd be fantastic. So yeah, I guess we can go down the list.
Okay, we'll start with Alex. I'm going to go alphabetical by my list.
Hey, I'm Alex Illich. I'm a PhD student at the University of South Florida College of Marine Science.
Good morning. Blake.
Hey everyone, my name is Blake Simpson, and I'm an environmental scientist for the Baylor.
Okay, and Chris?
Hi guys, morning. Chris Anastasio, Southwest Florida Water Management District Swim Program. Good to be here. Nice to see everybody survived Halloween.
David.
Hi, Dave Carlin with the Environmental Protection Commission of Hillsborough County.
Jillian.
Jillian Polino. I am a fellow with the Gulf Research Program at the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council.
Okay. Oh, Emma, just in time. Good morning. We're doing a round of introductions. Would you like to say hi?
I think she's still connecting.
Maybe. Okay. We'll go to John.
Hi, everyone. Coffee, taking a drink right there. I'm John Stanley. I'm with the Environmental Compliance Division with the City of St. Petersburg Water Resources Department.
Good morning. Okay, I'm going to hop back up. Emma, are you fully connected to do a quick introduction?
Hey, sorry about that delay.
That's okay.
Am I echoey or is that just in my ear?
Nope, I think you're good.
Awesome. Emma Jones with the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality. I work in the freshwater probabilistic monitoring program and water quality assessments.
Okay, thank you. Oh geez, I'm trying to keep my list straight as people come in. Jason Hill.
Hello, everyone. I work with Emma, also in water monitoring, quality, and assessment in Virginia.
Good morning. Okay, thank you. John.
Hi, I'm John Peak. I'm an associate research scientist with Florida Fish and Wildlife Fisheries and Event Monitoring Program.
And Julie.
Hi, I'm Julie Christian in the Water Division at the Environmental Protection Commission of Hillsborough County.
Okay, and Lindsay.
Hi everyone, I'm Lindsay Mullins. I'm a PhD student with the Marine Fisheries Ecology Lab at Mississippi State. And I did used to work at a VDEQ water quality lab. I'm originally from Virginia, so really excited to see you guys here too.
Mike.
Hey, Mike Wessel, Janicki Environmental.
And Rich. Trying to connect Mike and the camera. All right. Good morning, Rich. Okay, I think I got everybody. And with that, I will go ahead and turn it over to Marcus. He will give us our open science updates by TPEP and their partners.
Thanks, Megan. Good to see everybody this morning. As per usual, I'll just provide some updates on various open science initiatives and other things of interest that I think this group would find useful, and then we'll turn it over to our speakers. Actually, before I get into all that, I want to talk about the schedule for next year. You may notice there are fewer dates on the calendar, but definitely take note of them. We will have just 2 meetings next year. Not that open science is any less important, but I do believe that our group has done a lot of good work over the last few years, and the message is out there and people are aware of the tools. We want to continue the conversation, but our organization, TBEP, we've been having a lot of internal discussions about the various meetings we have and all of the commitments that we ask of our partners. And so we're just trying to strategize the best approach to scheduling all the various committees and meetings that includes. So you actually probably have received a survey that went out, I think earlier this week, asking you all to sort of let us know what meetings you attend, how useful they are, and if we are kind of doing our jobs to serve you through these various committees. So if you haven't seen that email, let us know. I believe it did go out to the Open Science Subcommittee list. And if you did get that email, definitely fill it out and let us know which meetings you attend and if these are of use to you and if we can do them better or differently to better serve you. So we'll have a meeting next year in May, and then one later in the year in November. And then I do, with the vein of what we're trying to do with this Open Science Subcommittee with trainings, I do try to have a training at least once a year. Next year, I am going to try to have a hackathon. What that will look like specifically at this point, I don't really know, but it's been something on my list to do for a while. But basically, kind of get everybody into the same space and just sort of let you run wild with some data sets or ideas and see what we can kind of collaboratively generate through, a fixed amount of time. And so if you have an interest in that, reach out to me and we could talk about some ideas and what that might look like. But I am planning on doing that sometime next year for our training for 2024. I think you all are aware of what this group is about, but basically I like to remind everybody we have kind of 3 main goals. One being support the development of open science products at TBEP. 2, ranking priority research areas for developing open science products. And actually the hackathon is something that we could use to identify what those priorities could be, sort of exploring new data sets and what's feasible with the existing data that's out there. And so that's kind of where I'm thinking about taking this hackathon. It's not really something we've done a lot of with this group in the past, is ranking these priority indicators, but something that could be addressed in the future. And then 3, training, of course. We've had trainings over the years. We had an open science training earlier this year. We actually have another one coming up at the end of the year that I'll talk about in a second if you're attending the SURF conference. And you can check out the guiding document that sort of lays out all of these things in more detail. So I actually don't have a lot of open science updates in terms of what the program has been doing. Actually, Blake has done a few things that might be of interest to the group related to the social sciences efforts that he's been working on. But I just wanted to mention a few things that y'all might find interesting. Last time I talked about ChatGPT in general as a resource, but there's been some pretty cool developments with how it can integrate with RStudio. If you're using RStudio as a platform to use R, and I think many of us are, there's been some pretty cool add-ins that have been recently made available with the latest release of RStudio. This link actually goes to a talk that was from the recent POSIT conference, maybe like 2 months ago, that talks about GitHub Copilot and how it's integrated with RStudio now. So this does require the most recent release of RStudio, and unfortunately it does require a paid plan with GitHub. You could actually sign up for like 30 days free trial period to do this, but I think $10 a month is worth the price for this service. But basically what it is I don't know if it's ChatGPT underneath the hood, but it is kind of this large language model that does provide code prompts for you. And this GIF kind of shows you what that does. Basically, if you can add a comment into RStudio, GitHub Copilot kind of guesses for you what you think or what the the code is that you're trying to create from that comment. So here I'm just showing like, okay, I'm writing a comment at the top saying I want to calculate some summary statistic from some data set, and GitHub Copilot, when it's integrated with RStudio, will see that prompt and sort of guess code that I would like to create. And like any kind of chat generated prompt, it may or may not be correct for what you're trying to do, but 9 times out of 10, it gives you a starting template for code that you would have to write by hand. So I started using it yesterday, and I'm still trying to get used to it, but so far I found it pretty useful for just kind of saving me time from just sort of not having to write code from scratch. So I don't know if anybody else here is using GitHub Copilot, but if y'all are aware of it, definitely try it out. I think it's a useful tool that probably will be part of the mainstream toolbox that we're using now in open science. Other add-ins that I think are pretty cool that we didn't talk about last time but now are available. There's 2 packages now that you can use to actually use ChatGPT directly in RStudio. So the GitHub Copilot is a little bit different. That's like code prompts where it auto-generates code while you're scripting. These packages are actually letting you use ChatGPT within RStudio in the conventional sense of asking a question and then submitting it and getting a text response. So the downside of this is you have to sign up on the OpenAI website that runs ChatGPT and give them your credit card. I don't hope, I'm assuming it's fine to do that. They haven't charged me yet, but you have to sort of, you have to provide that to use their API services. But basically, if you download the ChatGPT package, you can go under add-ins and run this little browser directly in RStudio to ask it any question you like, just like you would in ChatGPT. So it kind of removes that step of going to the browser and doing it externally to RStudio. So that is potentially useful. Now the chatter package is a little bit different. It's the same kind of setup where you kind of open a little window in the viewer in RStudio, but as I understand it, the answers you get are more specific to coding. So like if you're using ChatGPT, you often have to say, in R, how do I code XYZ? But if you ask a question in Chatter, you don't necessarily have to be that specific. So here I'm kind of asking it the same question. It gives me a general answer that ChatGPT would give me, but I didn't give it a data set here, but it actually gives me a response that says, if you have a specific data set about cats, I can show you how to work with it. So it's a little more tailored to coding, and it's kind of like intermediate between the Copilot and then just the ChatGPT components. So if you haven't seen these, definitely try them out. I think they're pretty cool. Some of them are paid services, but not too much of an expense at this point. And like I said, I think these things will be tools that are going to be like regularly integrated into the open science platforms into the future, and will be sort of a part of the regular services. So definitely check them out. Yeah, upcoming trainings. These aren't any that I've been involved with for the POSIT conference, but the POSIT conference, as I said, this happened like 2 months ago, I think, and this is like the annual meeting that is like the meeting to go to if you use RStudio. They always unveil really cool things at each meeting, but they're also very good about putting their materials online. So this link will go to all of the workshops that were held at POSIT, the conference of 2023, and there's a lot of great ones where all the material is freely available. So if you were to click on this, you can have access to, all this great content about creating data visualizations with ggplot. I found these useful for like just brushing up on skills, but also kind of understanding like what is the state of the open science platform that's out there right now through POSIT. Let's see, I also mentioned that at the SURF meeting coming up actually at the end of this month. I will be giving a workshop on creating dashboards in R, focused pretty much on Shiny, but also using newer tools like Quarto to create kind of static HTMLs that have some level of interactivity. So if you're going and you haven't registered, sign up. I think Mike is going, so that's great. But if you're not going, this website is available for you to see and use as a resource in a truly open science fashion. And then lastly, let's see. Yeah, Dave Carlin actually shared this paper with me yesterday that came out last month called Open Science 2.0. I was kind of skimming through it this morning, and I thought it was raising some good points. It's kind of like a general overview of like open science, but what's kind of cool is that it looked at over the past 2 decades various efforts to use open science in sort of academia and research applications to see how truly it was being open. And so it does this broad synthesis of open science, but kind of defines this new idea of what open science is now, 2.0. So basically, their take home is that we've been doing open science over the last 20 years in the sense that we're being more open in our activities, we're making data more available, we're making processes more available, but it hasn't necessarily led to more collaboration among various research teams or research teams with people that actually use the science, like environmental managers. And so their whole idea is that if we want to truly do Open Science 2.0, we actually have to have that collaboration component too, in addition to just being open in the first place. So definitely a cool paper. Give it a read if you like, and sort of think about how we can use it. Some of the ideas here to really be truly collaborative in this sort of open science space. So yeah, I talked about the schedule, and yeah, I want to have plenty of time for our speakers. So I'm going to hand it over to Lindsay next. But before I do that, any questions, comments from anybody about some of these new AI resources, or comments about the schedule for next year, or anything else? We can take a moment to chat. All right then. Cool. Well, I will hand it over to Lindsay now. I believe I made you an organizer, so you should be able to share your screen.
So it looks, I see the button, but it says I have to ask you to make me a presenter.
Okay. Okay. You should have presenter right now.
Okay, let me see here. All right. Okay. This is making me realize I have way too many tabs open. All right, can you all see the PowerPoint?
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right, so yeah, good morning, everyone, and thanks, Marcus and Megan, for having me here today. Like you said, my name is Lindsay Mullins. I'm a PhD student at Mississippi State University, and I'm going to be talking to you all about a topic relevant to my dissertation work and also very relevant to the Open Science 2.0 paper you just talked about. I'm going to be talking about modernizing workflows for geospatial data. And in other words, basically, I'm going to be telling you about various applications for collecting and managing data that has a spatial component to it, which is most of environmental work, I would say, and share with you some applications that can help you present and share this work and tell you a little bit about why that's valuable. So again, here's just quickly what I'm going to talk about, give you a little introduction to myself and some of my dissertation work, talk to you about electronic data collection and its benefits, introduce you to some Esri software, which is what I work in, and show you how that can be used for data collection, management, sharing, presentation. I've got a couple of examples to run through with you just so you can see what that might look like. I've got some resources for how you can learn to use these applications. And then we'll hopefully have some time if you guys have any questions at the end. So like I mentioned, I'm a PhD student with Marine Fisheries Ecology Lab at Mississippi State, but before that, I got my master's at State in geosciences after I worked for a park authority in Northern Virginia running a citizen science invasive plant management program. And so it was there that I first had exposure to the applications I'm going to discuss today, and I saw how beneficial they were in the field as well as for public engagement. I'm also now a research assistant with the Geosystems Research Institute and Northern Gulf Institute as part of their extension network. And the reason I bring this up is because I think the mission of extension goes hand in hand with open science. It's to provide research-based programming and information to stakeholders within the university's state, as well as to provide those stakeholders an opportunity to give feedback to researchers and extension agents, which can then be used to guide research direction. So it's kind of like a cyclical process in which I think science aims to serve and inform the needs of the stakeholders, and the stakeholders then use that to guide and inform the research. So as I'm speaking to you today, I have like a bit of a jack of all trades approach. So I'm primarily a spatial ecologist, but like most of us, I use coding and geospatial programs to analyze my research. But because I'm with Extension, I also have a vested interest in publicly sharing and providing opportunities for the public to engage with science. So my dissertation work encompasses kind of both a traditional shark fishery science approach as well as the extension, like a social science approach. So I'm mostly discussing the extension social science workflow approach today, I think it's really important to understand how my observations as a scientist guided that. So for my dissertation, I'm collaborating with the Alabama Department of Natural Resources and using their gillnet survey data to identify changes in the juvenile bull shark population and habitat use over the past 20 years. So on the left there, you'll see some DNR workers conducting the gillnet survey, and on the right, you'll see the outputs of the models I created, which show an increase in habitat suitability for bull sharks in the area from 2003 to 2020. So this collaboration is really exciting because not only is it an amazing story that I get to share about sharks and climate change, but it's also provided me with a lot of flexibility as a military spouse and a remote worker on the move. So I saw a cool opportunity to help the DNR and say thank you for their collaboration on this project. So I wanted to help improve their workflow. And then I also saw the opportunity as an extension worker to help this awesome survey they've been doing for decades, the findings from it be shared publicly. So for the third component of my dissertation, I decided to update their workflow, which has relied on paper-based data collection and Excel input. I want to incorporate the Esri applications I had worked with, make a story map about their gillnet survey that they could publish. And then I was going to do a survey assessment to get employee feedback on how they feel about this updated workflow, and hopefully that can be used to identify barriers to implementing electronic data collection. So one of the greatest challenges facing fisheries management is the data deficiency for fish species populations. Over about 80% of global stocks have insufficient data for a formal stock assessment. So as a result, efficient and effective data collection and recording is really vital to the success of future fisheries management. So for many fields of research, such as the medical field, there has been that strong shift from traditional paper data collection methods, which has paralleled that increased availability of digital hardware, such as your smartphone or your tablet. This paradigm shift in data collection, it's begun to shape conservation and citizen science and surveys and field collection. So think like Birdwatch from Cornell. And so as a result, these features such as cloud-based sharing and GPS, they're more accessible to those of us doing environmental work than ever. So sorry, Garmin, but these devices, they'll reduce the need for highly specialized instrumentation and equipment to only a smartphone, a smart tablet, and an application. So peer-reviewed studies regarding the efficiency of electronic data collection, they focus primarily on social surveys and citizen science. However, excuse me, allergy season, when commercial fishermen in Western Australia were interviewed regarding their fishing trips and surveys using electronic data collection, the efficiency and accuracy increased and cost decreased when compared to their paper-based data collection. So these results suggest that electronic surveys regarding the kinds of questions that we would be asking in fieldwork are compatible with electronic data collection. In terms of data storage and management, the transition to an integrated electronic data capture system yielded more efficient and easier follow-up of cases in the healthcare industry than in Microsoft Excel. And again, that kind of parallels our commonly implemented workflow, which is, we record in the field and then use Excel to manually input the data later. But the inputting of this data into a separate repository, which is necessary for doing analysis and data management, increases the likelihood of incorrect data entry and decreases the confidence of our scientific outputs. So having that kind of streamlined helps to avoid that. So in addition to these benefits, transitioning to electronic data collection can directly facilitate support for conservation initiatives. So the ocean literacy of the public is directly dependent on, the inner sharing and learning of knowledge, and depends on current, accurate marine science information to be accessible to non-experts in the field. So again, the availability of this technology can streamline that information straight from the researchers to the public, especially in a culture where most of the public is doing their learning via smartphones and Wi-Fi. Society has rightfully demonstrated a skepticism towards information presented in digital sources, but the research shows that the scientific community does carry credibility, and so as a result, we have an obligation to present and share our scientific findings in an approachable and accessible manner. So transitioning to electronic data collection may initially present some drawbacks for those working in the field, especially. Despite the widespread availability, it's not completely widely employed in geosciences for fieldwork yet. So one study, for example, found that employees were initially hesitant to change. However, the employee satisfaction with the transition increased over time. And while staff initially preferred the old means of paper data collection, by the end of the study that I read, all of them preferred collection by electronic means. So this initial resistance of employees to change might reveal a cause for the lack of integration of smart devices in fieldwork. And in that way, those benefits are sort of undermined before they can be fully demonstrated. So part of something that I think is really important is identifying which employees may be most likely to resist implementation, and then being able to anticipate and addressing their concerns prior to new technological introductions. So in addition to that, error rates were initially higher for electronic data collection versus paper data collection, but those rates also decreased over time. So it's recommended that if you're going to implement these programs, you just have an ongoing monitoring and training for employees and use quality control during that adjustment period. And that adjustment period looks like it's actually pretty quickly. For one example that was done with the Nature Conservancy, it was about a 5-day period of using touchscreens and the relevant software before the benefits began to be yielded. So additional issues, also you're probably thinking field work, are arising from the non-pristine conditions in which we're working. So during the fisherman survey I mentioned earlier, the greatest errors occurred when they were measuring the length of fish, which they determined was a result of dirty hands from handling the fish. So those who are implementing electronic data collection in the field, it's important to use things like waterproof and drop-proof cases, think life-proof or OtterBox, and just ensure that there are options for sufficiently cleaning your hands, or I think even having, a separate person who is there just for data collection. Switching gears a little bit, companies such as the Environmental Systems Research Institute, which is ESRI, have developed compatible applications to streamline those functions suitable for spatial data collection, storage, manipulation, analysis, presentation, and sharing, which makes customization accessible to more scientists without the need for specialized programming skills. So for example, one I'll be sharing with you today, Survey123 is a form of data collection software that employs an entirely customizable survey format and includes options for non-text fields. It also functions as an online repository, allowing for collaboration in data collection, management, analysis, and sharing. And since syncing can be instantaneous, data are remaining current. And if you want it to be, it can even be editable by other team members while someone else is still collecting data in the field. So that reduces that time lag between data recording and database input. You've also got features such as skip logic or branching within the survey that increases efficiency and implementation. You can implement domains, which restrict responses to a select range of options. So think like a drop-down list. And that promotes consistency and minimizes bias between recorders. It's already, one study found it's suitable for in-situ field work, and it yielded improvements in both terms of organization and efficiency for the group that was implementing it. Their collector, Esri also has a collector app, which functions similarly as a program for data collection, but it's more suitable for those who are seeking to work directly with like vector data, so think lines and points and polygons in a GIS or a geographic information system. So you also have ArcGIS Online, which is where you can choose to share your work within a network and make it visible to whomever you wish. And just like with ArcMap or ArcGIS Pro, you can conduct analysis or create polished maps. You can have it synced in real time as you collect data in Survey123 or Collector. And then lastly, all of this is compatible with the creation of a story map, which is like a multimedia platform you can use to create a narrative for your data. I think this is super cool because it helps make something that would typically be reserved for peer-reviewed literature. It makes it accessible in a different medium that is free and just really polished and approachable. It's a really cool way to help the public learn about whatever it is you're working on. And last but certainly not least, none of these programs requires the use of a coding language, which I think can be a huge barrier to the adoption of new means of data management. So that's important to know. So now I'm going to switch gears a little bit and share with you how some of the applications can be used. Most of my dissertation efforts so far have been more focused on my fisheries components of work. So sadly, I don't have a ton of results to share with you for the social, feedback from the Alabama DNR yet. But I do have a project I did with the Northern Gulf Institute in which I took the Sea Turtle Stranding and Salvage Network stranding report and I turned it into a Survey123 survey and shared it on ArcGIS Online to make sure all of this kind of did make sense before I implemented it into the dissertation. So here you'll see the original survey document. It's nice, but there's a lot of different question structures. There's some open response, single and multiple responses. There's a spot where it asks you to email in photos if you have them in. And as you can imagine, it can be a little bit tricky to figure out how to best format this in an Excel spreadsheet and, make it available for data analysis. So here's just a screenshot of the beginning of the survey I made in survey 123 based on that document. You'll see, I don't know if you can see my pointer or not, but in the upper right hand corner, when you make the survey, you can choose if you want to view it like it's on the computer, on a cell phone, or on the tablet. So it's compatible in all those different means. So these are just the intro questions, but you can see where I've either specified certain formatting requests in the descriptions of the questions. Or you can see, like, for example, the email question, I've made it constrained it to a certain set of responses. So the program will recognize if it's not a valid email address that's input, and it'll flag the mistake and not accept the response. So that is obviously really helpful for quality control. And then here's another section that I'm showing to you in the cell phone mode. You can see there's another question where I've restricted responses to integer values, and another where, rather than fidgeting with GPS devices or making mistakes when typing in coordinates, you can just drop a location to wherever the surveyor is making the report, and the latitude and longitude will be right there in your data sheet. So I won't go through the whole survey, but if you do want to check it out, you can use this link or the QR code, and you can see a few of the features I mentioned would look like if you were to implement Survey 123. So there's, the pin drop, there's a space to upload the pictures rather than having them be emailed in and have someone have to, go through and manage those. There's the domain drop-down list and survey subsections and branching. So yeah, you can check that out. Oh, one more thing. The really cool thing about the QR code is that if you're taking like a citizen science approach, for example, which I know that was an application that they were looking into with the sea turtle strandings, you can like use signs near the areas you want to study, and people can pull out their phones and pull up your survey. So it's really cool, Survey 123, because in order to take the survey, you don't need to download the app. You can take it right in your browser, and it looks nice and polished and not messy. So in the sea turtle example, they were thinking the idea is that you could like have signs near nesting locations on the beach with the QR code, and beachgoers would just come up and be able to scan it and learn about your survey and participate in it as part of Citizen Science Project. So when I log into ArcGIS Online, because I made that survey under the same account, all of these maps are automatically created and integrated with my survey. So if I click on the web map, for example, I'll see this. And so just moments before I took this screenshot, I went and submitted a report like I was in Biloxi, Mississippi, and you can see that dot right there on the Gulf Coast, the North Gulf Coast. It represents my report, and if you were to open up the attribute table, you would see all of my responses listed there. And as you can see, my map is shareable with everyone within my work network, Mississippi State, or with the public if I wish. So I have a link to the map I can share, and I can even embed it or make it into a web application that people can view. And so again, well, I haven't made the story map for my project yet because it's not 100%. I did want to share this really cool example of a story map from NOAA Fisheries with you, just so you can see what it would look like. You can see at the top the URL is not super user-friendly, but if you just do a quick Google search, like I've listed at the bottom of the screen, it'll bring this story map up for you to check out. And like I said, I think these are such cool, transparent ways to tell the story of your research in a way that's just nice and engaging. So you see here, it's just like a neat polished title slide. But as you scroll down the page, it all flows very seamlessly and is all integrated into just one flow. So I tried to do a screen recording for you all a few days ago, but I was having some trouble embedding it. So I decided I was just going to do screenshots to bypass the whole technical difficulties thing. But I do really encourage you to check it out yourself so you can get kind of the full effect of what it looks like. So as you scroll down, you'll see, there's a space to provide background information on the surveys they use and define important terms, which, as we know, is super important for science communication. And after scrolling down further, you'll see a large map with a legend and some more information pinned here on the left. And as you scroll further down the screen, it will start tracking a along the map, so it'll match the information on the left there with the corresponding locations on the map itself. So it integrates both that spatial and attribute data really seamlessly in a way that's polished and easy to follow. So again, yeah, just encourage you to Google this story map because the screenshots don't do it full justice. But one of my favorite things about these applications, and from talking with my coworkers, is how a lot of us learned is there's a lot of free programs that make it really easy to learn how to use them. So you do have to pay for the Esri software license. It's something a lot of organizations and universities already do. So there's a plethora of resources available online to teach you how to use and integrate them into your workflow. Iowa State Extension has a really large repository of tutorials and sample data that you can use to learn and practice working on these applications. While creating the Sea Turtle Stranding and Salvage Network digital survey, I created a couple of tutorials that are now in the process of being published with Mississippi State Extension as well. And third, and most significantly, are the resources that Esri's made. So those are free, they're really thorough, they have places where you can download the data that you need to use them, and they're easy to find. All you would have to do is a quick Google search. And so yeah, I literally just included Google on there because it's as simple as searching what you need to work on, and it's there, especially even on like YouTube, for example. So here's a screenshot of one of the pages from Iowa State Extension. I highlighted the URL at the top, but I sent the PowerPoint to Marcus, so hopefully it'll be uploaded so you guys can check it out later if you are interested. You can see they offer tutorials for lots of different programs and applications, but if you're looking for any of the ones I discussed, you can see they have a keyword search. I'll mention real quick, I saw that they have tutorials for QGIS, which is at the very bottom there of the screenshot. That's a free and open source geographic information system. I've never worked with it personally, but so I don't know the extent of its capabilities, but I do know several scientists who use it to create, this kind of shareable map figures and whatnot. So it could be a good alternative if the license required for Esri is a problem. So here's a screenshot of one of the tutorials I saw for ArcGIS Pro, which is how I personally manage and analyze my geospatial fisheries data. And you can see from the page length that it's really brief and concise, and you can also see that it's free. So those are both good things that make picking up a new program not so intimidating. Here's another tutorial that's from Mississippi State's Extension Resources. Currently, there's only a couple posted online. However, creating a larger repository is something that is actively being worked on. So I wouldn't say go here first yet, but it's something to keep in mind in the future. This example is great though because it lays out explicitly, the programs and everything you'll need, uses open source data, and provides background information so you get to learn, have your terms defined and everything. Before giving you step-by-step instructions on how to, in this example, like share raster data. So that would be like pixelated continuous data to ArcGIS Online. Here's also some examples of tutorials you'll see available directly on the Esri website. You can see they've got the tutorials listed in groups, which is really nice if you're just starting out. Like I said before, though, if you have something specific you're looking to find how to do, seriously, a Google search will suffice. And then lastly, here's a screenshot of the story map screen. If you were to be looking to create one, I want to show you again just how integrated these tutorials are into the applications. If you click the tutorials button here, you'll see this screen, and that should be more than enough to get you up and running. So here are some of the sources I referenced earlier in the presentation. Thank you guys for your time and the chance to share a bit with you all. I know I jumped through a lot, so if there's any links or anything you're curious about, I think hopefully they should be accessible in the Google Drive. You can check out the PowerPoint slides there. Or you're free to email me if you have any other questions, and I'm happy to take any questions you guys might be thinking of now.
Appreciate that, Lindsay. Great overview of your work. I have some questions, but I want to give everybody else a chance first to ask if they have questions.
Yeah, hey, Marcus. Lindsay, I do have a question. So, Lindsay, that was a really good presentation. I appreciate kind of the high level 30,000-foot overview of everything that you're doing and how you're integrating that with all the different Esri products. So, I work for the Water Management District, and we're one of those organizations that has quite a bit of integration with Esri. Like we have Arc Pro. We recently, I think we technically still have Arc Map, although we're retiring that now. But I was curious, like from your experience and your work, I guess from my perspective, there's a lot of apps that are now available through Esri. There's, I have a list of them here. I've got Field Maps, Survey 123, ArcGIS Earth, Explorer, and a lot of what we do is, we similar to a lot of the folks that are on this meeting, we're out in the field a lot, so we're collecting field data via tablet now. We're very rarely do we actually use pen and pencil and clipboard, so I'm proud of that. We've graduated into the 21st century. But what I was going to ask you is, like, is there a preferred app, kind of like a one-stop shop, where you can bring in nautical charts, you can do mapping on the fly, and you can also have a survey-based type of an input like you do with Survey 123? Do you have like a preference for I guess versatility? Is there one app that rises above others in your work?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Yeah, that's cool that you guys already are using that electronic-based data collection in the field. I remember, like, as an undergrad, when I first saw the waterproof paper, I was like, wow, we have arrived. This is cool. But yeah, it sounds like the collector.
We still got a ton of that too at the office.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, it sounds like the collector app is definitely going to be what's up your what would be the best fit for you guys, and it's very similar to that survey 123 format with the questions. You can have those constraints in the drop down, and actually it's what got me interested in this field. It was, more I was working primarily with point data, so that's kind of what led me to keep it simple with the survey 123. But when I worked for the Park Authority, we were mapping like parkland and gauging, the extent of invasive plant coverage, but incorporating those maps and being able to designate, larger spatial areas and having the flexibility to work with different kinds of spatial data, all very seamless and well integrated in the collector app. So that's definitely what I would recommend for you guys. And honestly, probably most people working with that kind of environmental aspect, and less the social. I think the Survey 123 is kind of like compatible for that blend, and the collectors for those who are really in the field. And again, like you said, Esri has so many programs and they're all compatible with one another. So I think that would be good for you.
Do you think like it's so my experience with using all these different apps is that you still have to create the map, I guess the base map, for lack of a better term. You have to go into ArcGIS Online and bring in your layers. So basically everything you're doing up front before you go out in the field with your tablet or your smartphone or whatever interface you're using. But that kind of, to me, it seems a little clunky in that if you needed to make some changes in the field, or let's say, oh man, I'm out on the boat and I'm like, man, I wish I had this layer in my map. I can't just go into Collector, let's say, or Explorer or any of these apps and just bring those into the map. So there's some limitation, at least it's been my experience, in how you can use these are really data input apps, not really designed to do geospatial analysis. Is that an accurate assessment?
Yeah, I would say that's an accurate assessment. And yeah, having a one-stop shop like that would be really cool.
That'd be awesome.
Probably hit the nail on the head for a direction that they will hopefully be going in the future. But I think that's a fair assessment. And that is one of the benefits though with the cloud-based sharing. But yeah, I should add, when we use the collector in the field, we would go back and do some analysis back. So it's not to say that there definitely still aren't some benefits to being able to sit at your desktop and do these things. But like I discussed, with branching and the skip logic, and just even just the benefit of having a constrained set of responses, because I spoke a little bit about this with Marcus, like getting, sometimes you can have a bunch of standardized training, but when there are things like with the sea turtle stranding where there had to be some free response, you get people have different ideas about how to record data. So yeah, benefits made, but definitely not 100% of the way there in the criticisms that you offered. So I think those are all fair.
Okay, way better though than it was even like 5 years ago. So
Yes, for sure.
not really
for
complaining, just wanted to make sure that I wasn't missing something, and because these apps do update a lot, and there's a lot of new things that are on the horizon. So
Yes.
it's a struggle sometimes just to keep up with all the stuff that they got out there
Yeah.
that's available for us.
Yeah, especially on the university side of things, like I'm talking about how we're trying to make this repository, and like you're saying, like you've got ArcPro now, but there's all these ArcMap tutorials, and classes are still being taught in ArcMap in these old formats. So you kind of have to take the perspective now when you're doing classes or that base work, that okay, I'm just understanding how to think about this data and the approach for analyzing it. And then thankfully there are all those tutorials and things that I shared that are free and available, but it's definitely a big responsibility to have to try and stay current with all of that. And I think that's just the nature of technology, now, and how rapidly it advances.
So I don't want to like monopolize the discussion, but I just had one quick follow-up because you mentioned this, and I was curious what your thoughts were on. There are, so especially for folks that don't have the benefit of being attached to an institution that has those licenses to access all the various tools and ArcPro and whatnot. But being that this is an open science subcommittee, I'm going to ask an open science question, which is there's a lot of those free GIS type of platforms that folks can use. Have you used those before, or what's kind of in general, what's your thought on those platforms, especially when we're talking about kind of open source access without having to purchase an Esri license?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I've been fortunately for me, unfortunately for my perspective, I've been very spoiled to work with, groups and organizations that have that licensing and that software. I did mention, QGIS, I know is an open source software that a lot of people use for their map creation and, publish papers with, and it's great. And I believe you can do analysis in it. It's very similar to like the ArcPro or the ArcMap. So that would probably be where I would point someone, but that's definitely a bit of a blind spot I have, that's primarily where I've worked is with the Esri and with that software. So yeah, that's a great point though.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Chris.
Hey, I just had a quick question. I just dropped it in the chat. We are not yet using any of these apps here at EPC, but we use a Trimble to collect our seagrass data, and some of the newer Trimbles are starting to use these types of apps. And so I was just curious, is there concern with any of the sort of data QA/QC when using like survey 1, 2, 3? Say you're recording a depth, and instead of typing 100, you type 10. Is there a way of sort of proofing your data before it just gets put out there?
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I love so much about it. So you can restrict it to like integers. You can restrict it, constrain it, your responses to a range of integers. So like if you're like, well, there's no way that this is 10 feet, we're measuring deeper, although I guess with seagrass you can be pretty shallow, but you guys have a good understanding of what an acceptable range should be, and if you see something crazy. So yeah, when you're designing all of that, you can have those certain constraints. And one thing that I didn't do in the survey I created as well, just because I wanted it to be flexible and kind of a practice survey, you can have required questions and non-required questions. And like I mentioned, there's those domains, which is what I actually wrote my tutorial on, and and is in the process of getting published with extension. But it's literally creating like that drop down list of acceptable responses. So like as I'm working with the Alabama DNR, I'm like, okay, what fish are you interested in? What is the code for that? We don't want any typos. We don't want anyone typing out the full name of the fish. Like, this is all they can respond with, excuse me, rather than, leaving that open for typos or just someone who might get something confused on the fly.
Well, appreciate the conversation. Good questions all around, and I'm glad to see the interest in these products. I want to make sure that Emma has plenty of time to talk, so I'd like to pivot to her presentation now. I think, Lindsay, you shared your contact, so if people have additional questions for her, feel free to reach out via email. I'm volunteering.
Yeah, thanks, everyone.
All right, thank you, Lindsay. Cool. Yeah, so a little background. I actually met Emma at the National Water Quality Monitoring Conference back in April, I think. And it was at the end of a big panel discussion about dashboards. And I think I commented to her that 5 years ago, this type of panel discussion would never have occurred. So I think within our discipline, the environmental sciences, there's been a great proliferation of these tools, and I think some of the examples that Emma's going to present are a testament to that. So yeah, take it away, Emma.
Thanks, Marcus. Yeah, I fully agree that all these conversations are just mind-blowing if you think about where we've all come from. And I think we'll take a little bit of time to both Jason and myself, hopefully quickly go through our slides and open this up for more discussion. But we're here to sort of talk about, open science and what that kind of looks like, at least for our agency. We are, one of those government agencies that has a lot of, data governance rules on what tools we can use. So how open science sort of fits into our organization and what we can do, I think is an interesting conversation. And we'll sort of take it from the beginning of where we started to get to where we are today. But if you guys weren't here when we did intros, Emma Jones here and Jason Hill on the line as well. We're both in the Blue Ridge Regional Office for the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality. And we work in water monitoring and assessment. Next slide will show all the super fun stuff that our day-to-day gets to do. So mostly what we'll start with is the freshwater probabilistic monitoring program, where most of these images are captured from. And that program is really interesting. We get to go all around Virginia, randomly sampling sites to help understand what water quality looks like across various landscapes. And this program has been going for over 20 years at this point. Jason was there at the start. He's still here now, sharing his knowledge and experience. We all get to benefit from that. But the cool part about this program is not just collecting all the monitoring data, but we also get to look at using it for all of our various programs, from total maximum daily loads now to permitting, as well as giving contextual information about what the state of water are in Virginia. With that, we have grown a lot. We spend a lot of time in the field, and I think I've got a phantom on my PowerPoint here today. We've spent a lot of time in the field, so we've needed to use tools, one, that are powerful enough to analyze this vast amount of data we collect, many parameters throughout Virginia, and that has grown with the program. We are heavily reliant on using R, the programming language, which is traditionally a statistical tool. Back in the day when it was just Jason in the shop, it was basically the only tool that was helpful. They had some SAS tools, but as EPA had, helping us with analytical problems, they helped proliferate our using R to manage the data, to analyze it, and to generate our chapters for our water quality integrated report. And with, spending a lot of time in the field, we've needed more efficient tools that have kept pace with the vast amounts of data that we've collected. Luckily, our team and R in general has grown with that. And you can see here how we have, helped to increase the, data usage within the program. We're working really hard to better explain our data with different visuals, using R from every part of the program, from the data querying, the analysis, automated reporting using Markdown, maybe Corto someday soon. And we like to publish this information on our website to, close the loop, make this a fully transparent process, and make this as available as possible to other people, scientists interested in using our tools. We also like to make the data into, analytical tools for our agency to continue the, maximizing the potential of this information. And that's sort of a different angle for open science in general. It's one thing if you're a scientist and you're looking for different data sources and you're going to go seek out somebody else's code and, make it work for yourself. But what we're really interested here too is making our non-technical or non-R savvy staff, as proficient using these tools, gleaning this information from our data sets. And for years and years and years, we would generate some pretty sweet code to do X, Y, or Z with especially our problem data. And we would give trainings in-house and we would be all psyched about it. And then we'd spend a couple of hours, teaching people how to change their working directory. It was infuriating. It was just because there's such a learning curve with, programming languages. And finally, we got a little bit smart. This is sort of 2015-ish advent of Shiny becoming on the scene. And we learned that, the average user, especially within our agency, does not really want to stare at this code. At this point now, this code is so old, I don't want to stare at it either. So we started incorporating Shiny and, user interfaces, nice front ends to the analytical tools that we were developing, and found that was just a complete change in the trajectory and how we can, build these analytical tools that will, one, get used and will become, a change agent within our agency. We're looking at a quick little video here of a benthic stressor analysis tool. What this tool does is basically uses our probabilistic monitoring data, the population estimates, to help users. They can plug in some data they've collected at one of their own sites or a series of sites and help look for potential stressors as we're working through the TMDL process, benthic stressors. So, we talked about this a little bit, but, R is a phenomenal tool to help us accomplish our goals, right? It was great for managing large data sets and working with them on the probabilistic monitoring side, but also, making these great interfaces, these reproducible reports with Markdown. We're really into Bookdown these days, trying to get more information in readily available formats. And what we like about it is that, it allows the scientists, not necessarily data scientists, but the scientists to develop these tools, create a workflow to try and, figure out a problem, easily scale it and distribute it to other people, extending that analytical power from, your one power user to other users that, can then have these tools or information available. So what we've done over the years at our agency, we ran into a lot of issues of creating Shiny apps, and then where the heck do you put a Shiny app? All this we've struggled. And finally we have broken through, and we can proudly say that we have an internal server. We're running the now Posit Connect distribution platform, which basically is like Shiny Apps IO on an internal system. It allows us to readily connect to our internal databases to build really efficient querying systems to host all of our different Shiny applications, book downs, markdown reports, everything like that. And this has really become sort of a self-service tool platform to help out our monitoring, assessment programs, biological assessments, TMDLs, and water permitting. And these tools, I'll give you a little rundown of our video if I can find my mouse. This is just the landing page for all of the different tools that we have developed. These really represent really complicated workflows that are made accessible through the Shiny apps, dashboards, etc. And I think what's interesting about this is that this whole platform, these tools are all maintained by our water staff. So not contractors, not our IT department. And they're used to, answer questions, part of our regular business practice. So those querying of internal databases, we have great programmers who've figured out, different use cases besides just basic business querying tools, and they've dialed that into faster, more efficient, and better tools for users looking for different processes. And they're saving our end users tons of time, teaching these automated systems and automated methods across water quality assessment, permitting, etc. So how do we develop these tools? Most of the time we've got a handful of really great R programmers that are housed inside actual specific water programs, and they work with end users, or they identify a problem on their own and build these local solutions, and then because we have this shared environment, we can readily spin these up into throw a Shiny front end on it, talk to your user base, and then readily distribute it. And with all processes, and it's an iterative process. So the first iteration of any tool, any project is not going to be the end goal. But by having our developers in-house in the programs, one, they can get to a better product faster because they are very in tune with what the need is. But also, it's not a matter of going back, filing a ticket, or working with a contractor and finding money to build upon these various tools. We can close that loop a lot faster by having these programmer scientists housed within each group. With that too, as we've grown, we've got an internal R team. So this is, anyone's welcome to join, but anyone within our agency that has a specific interest in growing R as a tool set within our agency, maintaining our server. And that's helped us with something that one doesn't really think about from the start, but these product succession planning. It's really easy to make a cool tool or to make a workflow and then just sort of let it sit there. But thinking through the processes of how we make these, business critical tools live on beyond being, maintained by one singular person is really important to create a sustainable future for using open source tools like R within our agency. We're also really interested in growing R. We've done a lot of work to build a curriculum unique to DEQ to teach, basic R skills to users. We've offered this a number of times. I think we've got in excess of 45 people that have now gone through this training and have at least elementary skills to work with R. We're dialing different ways to get more of an intermediate training and maybe sort of build sort of mentorship programs to continue this growth and proliferation of using R in people's day-to-day workflows. And lastly, something that Jason and I are terrible at, but we're learning, is product documentation. So we've got some great people that are forcing us to write down how the heck our tools are working, the decision points, and help maintain these tools into the future. It's great for, building those bridges, working with our internal IT organization, but also when thinking about how these things are going to live into the future beyond Jason, myself, whoever the heck the programmer was at the time. So, the big flashy thing that I always like to talk about is when we started building all these cool, shiny apps, putting them out on a server, sharing them with everyone, one sort of fear and thought that we had from the start was that if we build all these interactive tools, maybe there will be a culture change where, you constantly need another app for X, Y, or Z. This is great, but let's have another app for that. But was really interesting, at least within our organization, was that there was a true interest in sort of a self-sufficient, use of these things. So instead of just looking at the tools and saying, this is great, but can you add this feature? Or can you build this tool next? There has been an interest among more than a handful of people to learn R itself, to steal little bits of what this workflow or this app or whatever is doing and try to recreate that in your own workflow for whatever use case you might have specifically. And I think that's helped to, one, improve the data literacy within our whole agency, but also sort of completely change the culture of being reliant on, our internal IT department to build every maybe tool that we need. It's allowed more of the self-sufficient, go-getter personality, a mechanism to help me help you, get these workflows written down, codified, and made more available to other users. Real quick, hit on this later on, but sort of a quick rundown of where we've been to get to what we like to say is this new cohort of our users, going from that initial distributing of our scripts or building apps and installing them locally. The R portable, we skipped over that, but hopefully most of you guys can skip over that in your life cycle of app development too, all the way through the R Connect server platform. Really, what all of this is about is trying to give more visibility to different ways that open science can be used, especially in the context of government in general. It's definitely a challenge. We're still working with it. All of this, we're so proud of where we've gotten so far, but it's all restricted to internal users, all these apps. We put the code out there online, but to hit our databases, you basically have to be a DEQ employee. We want to continue to grow this. We are very excited with all the momentum towards adopting R as an official tool for our agency, and the proliferation of R as a skill set amongst our employees. But I think we definitely got a lot of work to do going forward. And we understand the challenges that you guys might be going through too. So if you ever want to talk, we're a sounding board. We've got you. And hopefully at least your journey can be faster than ours to get to the state. But aside from that, here's both of our contact information and places that you can go look at all of our repos. And with that, Jason, do you have any big summative statements, or do you want to just open up to questions?
Yeah, I was just going to mention to the group that I was just here for backup. Emma's family recently welcomed a newborn a few weeks ago, and I'm glad that you got to hear the smarter DEQ person. So Emma, glad you could come here and make it. I'll just say that we've given this talk to a different number of organizations, different states, and we all have the same issue of running into an IT department that is very uncomfortable with this. And persistence is basically the only way. Find someone that will work with you, one person. We've got this back end set up, but we don't have the front end of the data collection like Lindsay was talking about. But because of all the efficiencies we've been able to show, we actually seem like they're more willing to work with us. And we're hoping next year we have Survey 123 starting across the state to collect some of our data. And I think once we get one in and can show the hours of people work we're saving, that there'll be a lot of walls come down for many of our programs. But that's all I wanted to say, and great job, Emma. I'm certainly happy to help with questions.
Yes, thank you so much, Emma, and definitely, appreciate the fact that you're talking to us now, even though you're on leave. So I certainly
There's no screaming baby right now. Hopefully my mic hasn't picked it up.
and also, I mean, this is just such a phenomenal example of how open science is applied in the real world. I've spent the better part of the last 3 or 4 years talking about the virtues of open science and how we should all be transparent and open, and it's going to solve all the problems for making science better and truly applied. But you've highlighted these very real hurdles that happen when we actually try to do this within a large institution such as yours. You talk about culture change, and that's a critical part of this, but it's not easy to have a culture change. And I think it's encouraging to see the progress that the DEQ has made and how that progress has been made to address these different hurdles along the way. And I just want to point out, your use of RStudio Connect, or I guess Posit Connect is maybe what it's called now. It seems like that's a good medium or middle ground for what DEQ needed, because there were these IT concerns of sort of, making all of the tools open on an external server using like Shiny apps, for example. But Posit Connect seemed like a good fit for your group that others, if you're struggling with these similar issues, could look to as a way to sort of meet in the middle of being somewhat open, but also having kind of this internal control over, the apps and the code beneath it. Is that kind of an accurate assessment of the process y'all went through?
Yeah, very much so. I think that's a astute, observation. We've tried for many years with more of those external Shiny Apps IO, distribution platforms that it never quite made our IT department comfortable. And it took us some years to get an internal server and this Connect platform set up. But the benefit for that, for us especially, was that became sort of a gateway drug for us. We were able to connect our local R instances to our internal databases. Prior to that, we weren't actually even able to do that. It was always download data from another tool, bring it into R, then you can do your process. And there's just a huge, lag in what one can do when you're restricted, that connection to the real data itself. The benefits of having this server internally is one of them. Jason says this all the time. It's that we are able to build these tools that one day we truly do want to put out public facing. But along with the security concerns, we want to make sure that we've got really good products before we get them out there. So by having all these things internally, rigorously testing them with our smart staff, that can find all the pitfalls and the problems, when we get to the point where we can work with our security department to have something externally facing or a separate server, whatever that looks like, to make these things available to the public, we will have a fully dialed product or products that we feel fully confident in, and that we can, close the transparency loop on that. But yeah, the internal server was, at least for our IT department, that was the ticket that made all of this possible.
Yeah, very cool. And a lot of the conversation now is around IT hurdles. And, like I said, the internal server is a middle ground, but at the same time, once you have permission to use a particular software and you can demonstrate its value, it opens the door for other improvements. I think like what Jason was saying, if you can actually start using survey 1, 2, 3 and demonstrate how it's saved resources and time in the process, it opens up conversations that can explore other platforms to build on that. And so I think it's important to realize that when you're kind of working towards institutional change and culture change, that it's an incremental progress and an ongoing conversation towards how it can improve efficiencies and while still sort of meeting the needs of various IT security parts. That's kind of it's a long process, but one step at a time, and sort of showing the value of the tools as you are sort of allowed to use them. Any other questions for Emma or Jason?
Hey, Marcus. Hey, guys. Yeah, just a quick question. I was curious. You guys are probably very similar to in this fashion, but we're in a very integrated environment where we have a lot of data that comes from different sources, and I think we all appreciate the time it takes to tidy data and get it in a format that is usable. So for your group, like, do you guys ingest data from other agencies and other sources, and is that part of the workflow process that like an individual would be doing, or is that still something that you would have kind of those subject matter experts deal with in terms of the tidying of the data before you can even employ some of those tools that you have in R? I was just curious if you guys deal with external data a lot, and has that been kind of a challenge for y'all?
I mean, even tidying data internal, is quite a challenge too, as you guys are probably familiar. Yeah, so with our water quality assessments program, when we do our 305B, 303D report or integrated report, we use citizen and non-agency data, and we try to bring that in, and we level it. We try to make sense of it in comparison to DEQ data to make more of a holistic assessment of these various water bodies where we have other entities collecting data. One of the big things that we did for this last integrated report cycle was work with a citizen monitoring cooperative. They have a database that houses a lot of citizen monitoring data, mainly to the Chesapeake Bay. We got an extra grant incorporating the rest of Virginia. The citizen monitoring groups can now import their data into this portal. And as an agency DEQ, what we have done is we've written scripts, scrape their API such that we can efficiently pull the data, run our rigorous QA, QC routines, and more readily incorporate that into our water quality assessment processes, reformatting the data to make it a lot easier for our water quality assessors to, go from data all over the place to a decision made, right? These processes were mostly handled by pretty technical staff to write the processes to get the data from the portals, bring it in, clean it up, and then make it into a more usable format, which we distribute through Shiny Apps and various spreadsheets as needed. But these processes are then made available. We like to write little book down chapters and how to get these, use these tools. And our hope is that one day that because we've, been better at documentation now, we can, inspire others to use these methods. We do a fair bit of grabbing data from the USGS NWIS system. Again, same sort of idea. Most of this, again, written by more technical staff, but with the hope that if you make these efficient and pretty clear workflows available, as our other staff learn the skills and have the need, they will have these great little vignettes available to them so that they can steal little bits of code and make their lives easier and answer their own questions. hopefully that answered it somewhat. It's, you know,
Yeah.
we're sort of in that intermediate space. It's good to have a couple power users to like digest the vast world of Google and figuring out your problem
Right.
and make it more available to, you know, just somebody who like has only so much time and just needs to solve a problem.
Yeah, no, that definitely I agree with you, and I think that harkens back to Julie's earlier question about QA/QC, that you know that's always a concern when you're bringing in data from an outside source. Marcus knows this very well because a lot of pretty much almost all the data that he presents in dashboard form comes from, you know, many of the agencies that are collecting the data, and so everybody has their own little quirks on how those data are you know QC'd and how they're put together in a, you know, in a database. And so it does take, unfortunately, you know, there's no secret. It takes a lot of just trial and error in many cases. It's the same thing with Esri, you know, in Arc Pro. I'm still learning Arc Pro, and you know, I'll spend a half an hour trying to figure out something, but once you know it, then you're good to go, and then hopefully you can teach others. So yeah, no, that I definitely understand what you guys are dealing with. So thank you.
I will say that the most successful apps that they've deployed are the ones with the subject matter experts in the R person trying to improve their workflow. You have that constant feedback, you know, like I don't know how many versions we're on like the benthic assessment tool, but you're working with all 14 biologists and they're just beating the app to death using it and getting, I mean, that's probably a several month period, but now once it gets through that, you're in this business process that it's the agency's tool. But yeah, it's that connection on those very successful apps are key. And generally, I think Emma referenced that this is going to be internal for years. You almost want that process before you put it to the public because you know it's been through so many beatings, so to speak.
Yeah, that's a good point, Jason. And that we kind of follow the same model. We have an R working group, and there are those folks in our data collection bureau that like they know R really well, and so you partner them up with your, you know, your science lead, your project lead, who knows the data but doesn't know as well the tool. So that's seems to work pretty well. It's more of a kind of a team-based approach.
And if you find someone that knows the tools in the subject matter together, hire them. Those are unicorns. But yeah, that's really important. I've seen so many apps developed or other pieces of software where it's, you know, somebody that can build them, but they don't have the expertise, and it ends up being something that doesn't really meet the use case. And that's just the product of a disconnect between the developer and the users. So that's a very critical point when you think about developing tools. But yeah, we're at time, so I think we'll call it for today. Definitely appreciate the presentations and the discussions that ensued. Again, want to thank Lindsay and Emma and Jason for talking to us today. Yeah, so I guess for, you know, this is our last meeting of the year. So I want to thank you all for coming to these meetings. I hope they've been informative. Definitely put the dates for next year on your calendar, May 29th and November 27th. And if you received an email about the survey for our meetings, just all of the meetings about that TPEP does, definitely make sure to fill that out and get it back to us. But yeah, with that, thanks again to everybody and our presenters, and we'll see you next year.
Thanks, Marcus. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.